So I used to live in Whitby, and I still live in Durham, and therefore I love covering Durham locations when I'm writing Haunted Canada, because it's close to home and special for me.
Doors Open Whitby connects people to places, stories, and is part of a provincial initiative. We've learned about the growth of our town, our urban and rural spaces, the remarkable individuals who have been part of that journey, and about the waves of immigration and innovation that have followed. Connecting our community to the places that we value has been harder in the COVID-19 world of 2020. Thankfully, like many other communities in Ontario, Doors Open Whitby is going digital, so we'll still have the opportunity to learn and explore, to be inspired and challenged as we look to the future, to cherish what is right here in our own backyard, and to acknowledge how we got here, to rediscover Whitby. We begin this story by acknowledging that it takes place on the traditional treaty territory of the Mississaugas of Scugog Island, First Nation of the Mississauga Nation. May we respectfully share in the responsibility of the stewardship and environmental protection of these ancestral lands. We recognise that we still have a lot to learn about the people who lived on this land for thousands of years before the first settlers arrived. The Ontario County Courthouse, known today as the Whitby Centennial Building, encompasses part of the original plan of subdivision, originally owned by Asa Worden in 1854. The Ontario County Courthouse, as it was originally known, is located at 416 Centre Street South and was centrally located within Ontario County, making it accessible to its patrons. During that time, it was typical for judicial and administrative government buildings, such as registry offices, jails and courthouses, to be located on one site. This was the case for Ontario County, with the Land Registry Office located immediately north and the original jail, now demolished, which was located on the west side of the block. Centennial Building was built between 1852 and 1854. Before its construction, a £25 prize was offered in a competition for designs for the courthouse and jail. This was ultimately won by a Toronto architectural firm, Cumberland and Storm. The contractor was James Wallace, a prominent local Whitby man. The final costs of the building were £6,000. The courthouse was designed in the classical revival style of architecture, which was popular for public buildings in the 1850s. Similar courthouses were designed by Cumberland and Storm in Cayuga, located outside of Hamilton and in Lindsay. Originally, the building consisted of a 3-storey centre portion, topped with an ornamental dome and a 1-storey wing on each side. Perhaps the most distinguishable feature are the Doric columns on the front facade, made of Ohio freestone, which were modelled after the Parthenon in Athens, Greece. The court opened officially in January 1854. Ontario County councillors all came to the courthouse to meet on government matters of the time. As old buildings go, no history would be complete without a good ghost story.
I knew that this location was haunted. I'd heard about it many times over the years. The thing that I recall was that when I was starting out as a writer, before I was published, I actually came here and saw children's author Kenneth Opel up on stage giving an author talk. And so when I started researching this location to write about in Haunted Canada 8, I had the vision of that event in my mind. I could see the stage, I could see the theater, and it kind of creeped me out a little bit actually, because I had that personal connection to this location while I was writing about it. The earliest report of ghosts goes back to an old newspaper article that was written in the late 1800s, 1873, in the Whitby Chronicle. And in that article, it talked about a crowd that had gathered outside in the evening of July 30th. The rumors had spread throughout town that the location was haunted, that people were seeing ghosts outside. So I think a lot of locals wanted to come see for themselves if they'd have a glimpse of anything supernatural. And many did. Many claimed to have seen a ghost of a man in a top hat, leaning on a cane outside on the front steps. He seemed to be in a lot of pain and distress. He would often yell and cry and moan loudly. He'd yell at the sky even, as if he was mad, in addition to being in physical pain. Some people claim that when they approached this man, he would burst into flames and then disappear into the ground. And even more interesting than that, some people claim that they saw the ghost transform into a large black dog with glowing red eyes that growled at them as they passed by. So that was a fascinating article. I thought that was really cool. And then from there, I went on to try and find some more contemporary stories. Not too long ago, there was a man working on some sets right here on the stage late at night. He was the only person in the building. As he was working away, hammering, that was the only sound in the building, until all of a sudden, he got the feeling that he was no longer all alone. So he looked up from his work and he saw somebody watching him, actually right behind me from the balcony. And the person that was watching him, the stranger, this new man, was dressed in really old-fashioned clothing, a ruffled white shirt, an old-fashioned hat, and long black pants. The man that was working on the set, on stage, thought perhaps that this newcomer was an actor in some sort of costume. So he called out, "Hello," and the man didn't answer, and the person on stage started to get a little freaked out, and then he got really freaked out because the man on the balcony floated down to the ground, floated up right through the center aisle, up on the stage, and at this point, the person that was working on the set realized that the newcomer was definitely a ghost. He could now see that this stranger was translucent. He could see right through him. And before he could say anything else, the ghost went off to the side of the stage and floated straight through one of the doors, disappearing. So I just love that story too, because again, it's one thing to read about old newspaper articles, things that took place well over 100 years ago, but to read about something that's been witnessed or experienced much more recently always gives me goosebumps in the best possible way. Recently too, there were 2 psychics in the building late at night, and they definitely picked up on a lot of spirit energy. They claim to have had a vision of a trial that took place when the theater was a court, a trial of a young teenager. And they say they believe that either the youth's father or uncle was up on the balcony pacing nervously. And when the guilty verdict was handed down, the parent or uncle was so distraught that he actually fell off of the balcony to his death. So they think maybe that could be one of the sources of all the spirit energy in the building. So the thing I get asked more than any other question when I go visit schools or libraries and talk to kids and students is, have I ever seen a ghost? And the answer, unfortunately, is no. I wish I had, but I never have. For me, I love ghost stories. I'm drawn to them. One of the things I like most about ghost stories is every ghost story is really about history. So by reading ghost stories and learning about the haunted history of a location, you're really finding out a lot about Canada's past. Whenever I write a Haunted Canada book, I always want to add a lot of Canadian history into each of the books. I want to make sure that I cover what really happened in the location that's purported to be haunted. And so that way, kids pick up the books because they're intrigued by the ghost story, and then they kind of accidentally learn a little bit about the country as well. I think it's really fun too for readers of all ages to learn a little bit about the supposed haunted locations in their neck of the woods, right in their neighborhood, and then they can go visit it for themselves and see if they pick up on any ghostly presence, even if I don't.
From historical sites to modern marvels of construction, Digital Doors Open features virtual tours and online activities so that you can take a journey across Whitby and the province to discover the buildings, natural spaces, infrastructure and cultural landscapes that shape and define our communities and tell our stories. To learn more about this project, visit whitby.ca/doorsopen. Visit doorsopenontario.on.ca, where you will find more to discover from Whitby and beyond.